and welcome to Galley Stories, stories of the Bering Sea and beyond, hosted by Mark Kaler. My name is Penka Jane, podcast deckhand and longtime listener. We'd thank you to subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. Here's today's catch.
Hello guys, and welcome to another installment of Galley Stories, stories of the Bering Sea and beyond. I am your host, Mark Kaler. And today we have Deckhand Nick Tokmen. Nick, how are you today?
Good, yourself?
Good. Let's just start in the beginning. Well, first, we have Jesse here too, Jesse Roach. You guys remember him from a previous episode. He set up all these East Coast interviews for us, and he's sitting in with us today. Jesse, how are you?
Great, and Nick is actually the one who got me into commercial fishing in the first place. He's the one who, when I was working in radio, he believed in me to go out west and work, and he got me started the whole thing.
Excellent. So Jesse will be sitting in with us, and so Nick, where were you born, and what was your first introduction into commercial fishing?
I grew up in West Springfield, Mass, but to be straight with you, I just saw Deadliest Catch, and that's how I just looked like fun. I wanted to try it, and the goal wasn't for me to go like on the show; it was just for me to go crab fishing, or just to try it and see what it was all about. I was kind of like down out in college, and I just wanted to change, and I just went up and did it.
So what do you mean just went up and did it? Hey,
well,
got on a bus and went over to Seattle or a plane, or what'd you do?
Well, first I just looked into it. I went online and I was looking about summer jobs, and I remember, just watching Deadliest Catches fishing popped up into my head. And I just went on these websites where there were, postings for deckhand jobs available, called all these phone numbers, but no one would hire me on the spot. There were a few guys that were like on the fence of hiring me, but basically I had to show up and do it. So I just had research of, I could go to, for the summer I could go to Bristol Bay, Kodiak were a couple of main options. And then I picked Kodiak because there was more variety, like Bristol Bay was just all gill netting. And, if you want to go tendering or whatever. But, I decided, I just picked on Kodiak because they had all this variety. So I just went there and, bought a plane ticket up there, and I didn't even have a tent or anything. I bought a tent there. There's a woman that helped me out, and I started setting up, walking the docks and everything. And for quite a while, I heard a lot of no's and everything, and eventually something came. I worked on the crap boats and then worked my way up and everything.
Well, what was the first thing that came up? You're walking the docks. You're homeless, obviously, living in a tent in Kodiak.
Yeah.
What was the first?
So the first, I think it was like, I literally got in, it was the second day I got on one boat. I don't know if I should put the name, well, it doesn't matter. But this one boat I was going on, and I just could tell, main advice was don't get on a boat that's in rough shape, and don't get on a boat without signing a contract. And, I was just going to try it out, and the guy, I don't know, it just something looked a little, weird. And I went on the boat, kind of didn't look like it was in good shape. And right when we were going just to the cannery from the other, from the harbor, it stalled right in the middle because I think someone put water in the fuel tank and fuel in the water tank or something like that. We're trying to figure that out or something. So I left that boat. That was one boat I left.
So it didn't even make it to the cannery.
It made it eventually, yeah. But then I was like, I don't think I'm going to be working on this boat. Next guy was just, some druggie that couldn't stop screaming his head off. And then I got on this other boat, and he was a nice guy. I wasn't used to, fishermen talk a little differently than, compared to how you're, just on, at a regular job, and I wasn't used to anybody talking to me that way. And about maybe 2 weeks later, I mouthed off, to my boss, and of course I got fired, and rightfully so. And I bought me a plane ticket back, and then I had to walk the docks again.
Where were you when you got fired? I mean, so you started in Kodiak, and
well, I was doing seining, so we were in Larson Bay,
okay,
and then I got a plane ticket back to the mainland, started walking the docks again. A couple weeks later, I got on another boat, but then I got a staph infection on my knee. Spent a week in the hospital. I lost my job. And then it turns out the guy that replaced me had a seal bomb thrown in his bunk. So it just blew up a chunk of his stomach, sending him to the hospital. him, he went to jail and the boat got seized by the Coast Guard, I guess, from that.
Who threw a seal bomb? Do you know?
I forget the guy's name.
But I mean, it was just a crew member?
It was a
another
captain.
crew member?
It was a captain. But people thought he had a screw loose.
Okay.
I didn't know I was working for this guy or anything. It turns out when I went on to work, I worked with Bill Prout Hip on the Silver Spray, and one of the deckhands, his attorney, one of his clients was the guy. It was just a small world. It was funny that one of his clients was the guy that got his stomach blown up from the guy throwing a seal bomb at him. It was just, and he was going to court with him about it. It was just kind of interesting that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could have been that guy, and instead I got a staph infection, so kind of had my luck there. And,
okay.
Yeah.
So was the Ocean Spray the next boat then, or?
No, that was like years later. So so my first year just hopped on boats, trying to find any good boat. I made my big break probably a week and a half before the close of the salmon season. I made like about $2,600 in seining, and then after that I went on to try pot cod, and it was my first time I ever did a job like that. I failed. I couldn't do the job.
What part could you not do?
I just wasn't used to working like that. I think like fourth day, like I was doing everything. I was just the bait guy, and I was also the stack man because pot cod, you're on a 3-man deck. But yeah, I never worked like a 20-hour day like that. Pushing like 800-pound pots. But I was so focused on the job that I neglected drinking and eating, like even like a Snickers bar or something. So they were literally feeding me energy drinks just to sustain me. But when I had an energy drink, I was fine, back to normal. But then just the fourth day, boat rocking and rolling, I just was bawling my eyes out. Like I wanted to go, but just physically my body was slowing down. I couldn't keep up. And that was kind of like I didn't feel really good about myself. It kind of put a ding on my self-esteem, and it kind of really hurt me. I thought I said to myself I did my best at it, and I was just going to call it quits. And then met another guy, Steve Russell, and I fished halibut with him, and yeah, he basically gave me the confidence that I could do the job, and just kept at it. And yeah, so I worked with him. Following summer, I worked over in Bristol Bay gill netting. After that summer, I went back to work for Steve because I didn't know he wanted to hire me again, and so I went with him.
Steve
Russell,
okay.
for halibut, but he also did seining too. So we did seining and halibut, and then after that, I was thinking about going crab fishing to test it up again, and then that's when I worked with Bill on the Silver Spray, and that was about 3 years later that I got onto.
So how did that go this time?
For crab fishing?
Yeah.
Oh well, I made it. After that, I was fine. Like I was really pushing myself to see if I could do it. I was just working out, just staying up long hours. Actually, before I went up there, I was actually living in Vegas with poker players, and we were just staying up long nights. And yeah, we were just working out, but I had a long list of all the crab boats that were still fishing, and I called every single one of them. Hardly anybody would give me the time of day to talk to me. I think there was, anybody in the crab fishing community would know. I think Chevy Dave was a guy that called me back, and it was Hip that called me back, and he didn't have a job for me, but he just heard from references that I was a good worker, so he said if I went up there looking for work, I could use him as a reference. So I went up there, and
without a job
to Dutch.
Oh
no, to Kodiak. It was to Kodiak. I was nervous, but Bill basically said, you're young, you can take risks. If it's $5,000 and puts you back, so what? You just jump back up and do it again. So he kind of talked me into doing it. When I got up there, Bill picked me up, and because he was gonna use him as put him down as a reference. I offered to work on his boat for free. and just to kind of show him I was grateful. And so I just, I would get up in the morning, work, and turns out that there was this other guy there that got the job because he was related to somebody, and he didn't really have any place to be on a boat. He didn't know. I think it was first time out there or something, and people were yelling at him, and like he was slowing down. I'm like, this is my shot. It was just like I need a job, so I was working and he's like, wow. He's like, hey kid, it could be your lucky day, and then like I worked for him for free for 3-4 days, and I just doing gear work, and he took a liking to me, and he gave me a job, half share of course, but you got to work your way up, and yeah, that's how I got.
So when you were there this time, were you living in a tent or were you staying on the boat?
I was staying on the boat, but because I was working
Sure.
with them and everything, and yeah.
So you got your shot.
I got my shot. I was very lucky. I was very fortunate. Yeah.
Let's hear how that shot went.
Huh?
Let's hear how the shot went.
Oh, it went well. No, after that, it was good. My first time, no, it was just first trip out. I mean, the weather was a lot crazier than just doing pot cod like local, on a 58-footer or whatever. But no, I did okay. I did fine. People were actually impressed. They were like, "You did a good job, Nick." I was proud of myself. But I kind of pushed myself to do it. I just really wanted to do the job, and I was just, I made sure that I was going to do it. And there were a couple of times or nights because we were working around the clock, and I don't know, it was weird. We one day we were just working you know how it is, working 30 hours or whatever, and I was just tired, and I was like, just find it. And then I just had this big rush of energy. I didn't know where I got it from. It was like a second wind. I was just going nuts. I didn't know where it was coming from, and I was really proud of myself. I was happy, and that I was able to do it. And, yeah.
So at the end of the season, were you still half share?
At the end, Bill bumped me up to 3/4. So he thought I did good, and so I was fortunate for that. And,
okay.
Yeah, he gave me 3/4, and I just did I just learned the stack and throwed the hook a little bit or whatever, and that was it. Yeah. So
where'd you go from there?
From there, I got fired because I made an honest mistake. I put water in the fuel tank.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sounds a little familiar.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so I messed up. It was an honest mistake. Basically, I went up there. It was for king crab season. We were getting the boat ready. I was with my deck boss, and he just told me to put water in the freshwater tank. I said, okay. I was on the phone with my buddy, talked about a lobster steak dinner, and brought the hose up, and fuel sides the fuel and the water tank are right next to each other. They're labeled, but it's in black paint, welded, so I wasn't paying attention. I went downstairs to go get the pipe wrench. I put the water hose right next to the water tank. When I went up, because I put the water, the hose where the water tank was, I opened it up, popped it in, but the thing was the hose slid back, and I put it in the fuel tank, and I didn't know about it.
How much water went in there?
I don't know how much water, but all I know there, I was taking a shower, and I went up, and I just saw an overflow. I'm like, that can't be, and I was like, oh no, then I realized that I put water in the fuel tank, and then there was a sheen, and I was just, I fessed up to it, and
before the engines were started. You went and reported it, and
yeah. Well, I mean, if you reported it before, nothing would happen. They could do something about it. They can just use fuel from another tank or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it was an honest mistake, and Bill kind of felt pretty bad about firing me, and but he said he wouldn't say anything bad about me, so I just kept walking the docks again, and then I basically got my shot on. So I was asking around for jobs, and I remember actually Sig offered me a job for blue king crab one time when I met him at a bar earlier back, and so I went up to see if there was something available, and there wasn't. At the time, they weren't sure, and then I went to do someone got injured on a brown king crab job, so I just served as a temporary fill-in. Did that for a couple weeks, and then the guy took his spot, and then it was just so ironic that when I finished the brown king crab, that the Northwestern was looking for a crew member, so I just hopped on there, and that's
What about the milk story?
Milk.
With Sig.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So while I was working for Bill, our crew members were out at the bar, and he was just talking to them, and I was just kind of just looking at him, and he looks over at me and goes, "You've been looking at me the entire night. Why?"
Who is this?
This is
Sig.
Sig.
Okay.
Yeah, and I said, "I just wanted to make sure you were who you were." And then he goes, "Well, that's smart. Do you want to arm wrestle?" I lose, and then a couple days later, he sees me at the bar again. Waitress comes over from the bar and he goes, "This is from Sig. He thinks you're a pussy, so drink up." And then
it was a glass of milk.
Yeah, and then no. It was a Virgin Bloody Mary, and then so I sent him over a glass of milk, and he asked me, "Does this come from your mother's tit?" And I go, "No, but here's to your osteoporosis." And then he comes over and shakes my hand, and he started talking to me. He took a liking to me. He apparently actually offered me a job for tendering, but I turned it down because I was working with Bill at the time, and yeah. And that's how it happened.
Okay, but then that was before you actually got on the boat as a crew member.
That was before, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So now you're on the boat as a crew member. How did that progress for you?
On the Northwestern.
Sure.
Crew was great. It was just for Blue King. Originally, it was just for Blue King crab, but it was kind of a weird moment. I mean, because it was just really weird. Like I was going through a lot. Like I was homeless for a little bit. I was just going through a rough time. Having with the jobs and everything, getting fired. Like I thought my career was over, and just after a while, just something went right because you see that boat that got you on TV, and it was just kind of ironic that you're on that boat. It was just very weird. I couldn't explain it, and. Yeah, it felt really good. I was crying, bawling my eyes out one day. I just couldn't believe it was real. It was just like, it was kind of, I don't know, I'm a spiritual person, so there's a book that when I give to students, it's The Alchemist, and in the last passage I got, it's actually the first book I read when going up to Alaska was, when a person really desires something, all the universe conspires to help that person realize his dream. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks that when I was on that boat, that was...
Kind of a circle there.
Yeah.
From watching TV in Massachusetts to working on deck.
Yeah, that was just very interesting.
How long did you serve on the Northwestern?
So, it turned out that I was just going to be there for Blue King crab, but then Jake Anderson, he went on to another boat, the Kiska Sea, to try to be a captain. So they liked me. They asked me if I wanted to, they offered me a job to go up again, on the boat. So I was on there. I was on there for Blue King crab and Opies and tendering, but then Jake wanted his spot back, and so Jake got his spot, and then but Sig was nice. He put me on with the Hillstrand brothers and the Time Bandit, and then I guess Jake got his shot as a captain or whatever, and so then I just went with Jake on the Saga for the next 2 years. And yeah, that was my stint with fishing. Yeah.
And after that, you came back home?
Yeah, after 2 years, when I was on the Time Bandit, I started speaking in my off season, just to get on, just as my kind of way of giving back. I just wanted to do it. I originally I was doing it to prevent the students from ending up like my friends. And more I got into it, why I was so passionate about it is because growing up I always questioned my self-worth, and I feel that's why a lot of students veer off track. They try to be good enough for their peers, their classmates, or their family. So my job is if I can redirect a student's attention back on them so they can figure out who they are and what they want, then I've done my job. And
So let's touch on that a little bit. I expected it to come up, but later on in the interview.
yeah,
So you're out working king crab.
yeah,
You're on TV,
yeah,
and in the off season, you decided to become a speaker,
yeah.
inspirational speaker, essentially.
I guess, yeah. I mean, I just was doing it as just like a kind of like a fun thing to do. I mean, I just did it in my high school, and then my old high school, and they liked it, and so then I was like, wow, I really like this, and this was, you know, I'm just doing what, like, you know, my heart tells me to do. Like, if I want to go fishing, I go fishing. And I personally think fishing was a way for me to find myself, to see what I was capable of as a person. You know, and who the heck knows how long I'll be doing speaking, but I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do right now, or what I'm. And no, it just was fun. I mean, I got a great kick out of it. And people, like, I felt like I was making a difference with them, and I just kept doing it just as a hobby. But then the more I liked it, and people were coming up to me, I'm like, wow, I'd really love to do this, but I couldn't do both. And I, you know, because of testing and everything, and when I get back in time, coordinating with schools would be a pain in the ass. So I just made a conscious decision to leave and do that.
Mm-hmm. And that's what you've been doing since, and still successfully doing it.
Yeah, it's been a grind. It's been a lot of work, but yeah, no, I mean it's been getting better with it. I'm kind of learning everything, how things go. You know, it's not, you know, people think that you're just a speaker. You know, people call you and your phone rings off the hook, and that's clearly not the case. You got to work at it. And so, I mean, I'm kind of the only reason why I think I'm successful at it is because I got a good work ethic being a fisherman, and I'm just, you know, doing the best, learning as I go. So instead of, you know, learning what to do on deck, instead I'm learning sales, I'm learning marketing, or I'm learning, you know, how to do things more efficiently. So that's the only reason probably why I'm doing well at it, and also because I'm passionate about it. So yeah.
Well, I mean, just from the way that you got to Alaska by challenging yourself, and doing it without, I would guess, hardly any money, as you bought a tent and slept outside in Kodiak, Alaska, and to overcome all of that, and back to where you're working on a boat that you had seen on TV. It's kind of, I get, for a lot of guys, for a lot of kids even, it would be a dream full circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's how a lot of us on the East Coast kind of found our way into that, if we did, you know, is because we saw it on TV, because we didn't really know about that opportunity back east, you know, like you've spoke with Muncie, same thing. He's like, oh, I could do that, you know, and I think that's how a lot of us East Coast guys kind of had to get into it if we were going to go out west, and whether it be Washington or Alaska, you know, was what we saw on TV, you know. Other than that, we had no idea what was going on out west.
And you guys remember Jesse's the 41-year-old greenhorn.
The consummate greenhorn, yes.
Not anymore, but he was the 41-year-old greenhorn. So, Nick, many years up there then. Do you remember the first time you were scared? I know that it had to be getting into Kodiak, homeless, and with no job, but do you remember the first time on a boat that you were scared? Don't let it be the water in the tank going to the
No. Where was it? When was I? Actually, the first time I really got scared, like, I was thrilled when it was bad weather and everything. I was like happy. I got excited. I remember one of the deckhands goes, "See, kid, you should be scared right now, but the only problem is you're too stupid." And then, of course, eventually I learned. But it was when I was on the Silver Spray, and it was probably blowing about 55, 60. We had a boatload of crab, full tanks. We had a lot of our gear because we were moving it over, and we were going 1 mile an hour towards, like, you know, 1 knot, like St. Paul, and we were taking on ice and getting top heavy, and we had to go out on deck and, you know, take some, you know, beat ice and get the pots off. And one time, the hydraulic guy lost control of the sorting table because we put it on top of the stack, and it just started moving around. I thought it was going to hit me, or like, you know, the cable was going to snap or something. So I was considering jumping in the tote with the cod and everything. That was like my first time. I was like kind of scared.
There's a lot of moving parts on that deck.
Yeah.
And you put ice on it in cold weather and cold spray.
Yeah.
Everything affects it.
Yeah.
Everything affects it. Did you ever have a slow down moment?
Slow down.
Well, something's happening, and you can see it happening. And it's actually happening quick.
Mm-hmm.
But in your mind, it's just coming slow.
I don't think...
Odd question, I know.
I haven't...
And you normally think about it after it's happened. It's like, that just happened. And
I mean, I guess, like, you know, if you're in a pinch, like your reaction time just like heightens quickly. I remember one time, you know, when you're new, you're learning your bites, quote unquote, and one time I was just trying to pick up a crab, and I knew it, and there was the chute, and then there was the table, and I almost got pinched between, but then the hydraulic guy saw me. I was like trying to get out, but yeah, I think that maybe like a time like that, that just comes to mind. Yeah.
What was the most challenging part for you?
It's all mental, I would say. I mean, it was just, I mean, it's a hard job. I mean, it's just, you know, it's a grind. So, I mean, you know, the sleep deprivation along with doing the physical labor, and, you know, when I was on the Silver Spray, you know, my muscles were hurting because, I mean, it was sore. It was doing the same repetitive motions over and over again, you know, throwing the bait up into the pot, you know, your shoulder hurts and everything, and you're sword and grab, push and crab, and it's cold out, so your joints are, you know, probably a little worse. It was I think it was just the mental grind. That was what it was.
Do you see yourself going back?
Now, as of right now, no. I don't. Maybe I could. I would like to buy a Bristol Bay boat, potentially, so that I can teach my kids how to work, give them a good work ethic. That I could see. And I like Bristol Bay. It was a very fun fishery. It was just fast-paced, go, go, go. But I think it would be great to bond with my family and with my kids. And again, you just teach them a good work ethic so it can prepare them, whatever they decide to do, whether it's fishing or, you know, whatever it is in life. I think having a good work ethic definitely helps you.
Who was your mentor growing up? Because somebody had to have given you the courage to go to Kodiak to begin with. I mean, you don't just decide that. It's something in your upbringing, I think, or isn't it?
It was like I wasn't scared to go up there. I mean, I'm more of like a free spirit person. I mean, but like my mom, she's you know, she always says like she had the mentality of you can do whatever you put your mind to. She never had any limits of thinking realistically or anything like that. So I just thought, hey, what the heck? But why I went up. Well, my mom, I guess to answer your question, is one of my she's probably one of my role models. But for going up there, the inspiration or the motivation to go up there was I had my friends Marie and Phil that were kind of just pushing me, kind of encouraging me to go up there. And then I read this one book. It was The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. This was the last straw that pushed me up there. There were 5 questions that I was asking myself, and I remember I had the answers. One was, what is the worst that could happen if you did what you considered? List your doubts, fears, what ifs that pop up. What are the steps you can take to bring things back under control if things did not go your way? What are the outcomes and benefits of more probable scenarios? And what is it costing you physically, mentally to not take action? And what are you waiting for? You know, measure your cost of not taking action. I wrote all those answers down. I realized that the absolute worst did happen. I could handle it, but I would feel more bad about myself if I didn't do it, and just constantly looking back at my life and asking myself, what if? And that was the reason. I was like, you know what? As of right now, you only got one shot in life. This is something I want to do, and that's what pushed me to go up there.
Do some of these lessons learned, obviously when you started speaking, I imagine you draw a lot on these experiences when you're speaking. What portion of what you gained from fishing do you use currently today to inspire and lead children? or your students?
From fishing lessons.
Yeah.
One is when I failed at it for the first time, and when I tried to, go up at it, I tried to go up at it again. One lesson I learned is failure is not going to kill you or break you. It's what you do after that matters. When I turned down, a job with SIG going tendering, I learned to not forget the people who took the time to invest in you and give you your shot, because I feel that they deserve your respect, and if it wasn't for them, you wouldn't be where you're at. Brian Cheladinas, he taught me the full share mentality, that when you're on a boat, you're not just an employee or a part owner. Do whatever you can to make the operation smoother, so you're taking ownership. Yeah, those are some of the really important lessons.
And what do you focus on in what you do today? What's your primary focus?
What do you mean, like?
Well, when you're going to go speak to a class, how are you approaching that class? What are you trying to give them to gain from you?
Oh, okay. I guess it just comes out to three core principles. One is tuning out from the outside influences that, maybe tell you're not good enough or that you can't do something, and to tune into yourself and to focus on what you want. That, I think, is most important. Being your own source of approval. Second is to go after what you want, and the last component is just to push past the fears, doubts, obstacles, what others might think. My title is Become Your Captain, Catch Your Future. No pun intended.
So the C is involved.
Yeah, exactly. But no, those are the three core principles at a life. It's just, make sure you're living your life as true to yourself as best you can, and doing what you want to do.
So what advice would you have for young guys? You probably have better advice than most, because you just jumped up and did it.
Right.
What advice would you have from someone else watching the TV show, any TV show, or even just being influenced that they want to go do something like this? What advice would you give them, knowing what you know now?
Like if someone wanted to go fishing?
Yeah.
Make sure you know what you're getting into before signing up for it. That's what I would say. So, person would ask me all the time, you hear when I got on the show or something, you have people messaging you, hey, I would love to get a job, this and that. Occasionally I'd talk to someone, but it's just, I said, well, listen, I'm just going to shoot you straight. You're working, when they say you're working 20 hours a day, every day, sometimes that's the case. When you're going to be lack of sleep, you're going to be miserable and this and that. You're going to have people yelling at you, screaming at you. Just give them every single, know what you're getting into, and then asking yourself, do you still want this? And if you know that, then yeah. But
would you do it again?
Absolutely, 130%. Absolutely. I think, no, for me, because I was seeing it more as a challenge to see what I was capable of and to push myself. And back then I just didn't really, I guess I can go into it, but growing up, my dad wasn't around as much as I wanted him to be, so there was something lacking in me, I had to prove something, and maybe it was proving it to myself that I was worth something, and that's probably what I got out of fishing, I would say.
And do you think that's directed you to do what you do now? Is that you had in your own mind a sense of less self-worth, that you built yourself back up because someone else wasn't doing it? Is that why you direct your energies that way now?
To speaking?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, I just don't want. I just want to make sure I a lot of students don't feel good enough, and it's because for me, I was never the cool kid in high school or anything like that, and it's just you're different, so you have a different mindset.
Which is really odd, guys, because he looks like he's 25 years old, striking blue eyes, blonde hair flowing, and he looks really fit. In fact, right above his table here is an exercise thing that you pull across the top of a doorway.
Yeah.
So, and he was cooking eggplant when I got here. So, you'll see a picture of him when this loads in post. But
yeah,
Nick, what else would you like to say to anybody listening?
This is a fishing podcast, so if you're thinking about about doing it, or I guess just try something. I mean, you only get one shot at life. Just live it up and take risks, take chances, go for it.
What was your funnest time?
Most fun?
Yeah, most fun. Probably besides the milk thing, because that had to be kind of fun.
I think it was... Ooh, that's a great question. Most fun I had. Justin, if you're listening to this, get me my frickin' tape. So, we were on the boat on Silver Spray. This was one of my fun times. I remember this vividly. There's not a lot to do. I just got makeup and I dressed up like the Joker. And I don't know why. Just for kicks, just for fun. And there was a lot of ice around, around the water, and we were kind of relocating our gear. And Bill looks at me. He goes, "You belong in a circus," and he goes, "We need to get you on an iceberg, or on a piece of ice." So they craned me off and put me on a little, on just a sheet of ice, and I was just standing there. They were taking pictures and everything, and I freaking wish I had that picture. I've been asking him that for years, and he never gave it to me. I wanted that, and that was probably one of the most fun times I've had out there.
Did they pull away at all?
I think as a joke, as a joke, but I was just like, they're gonna come back, dude. But no.
I think Casey McManus has a very similar story without the Joker makeup.
Okay.
But I think if it was Casey, I can't remember if it was Casey that was left on the ice, or if he was definitely on the boat.
Yeah.
But I mean, they were like legit acting like they were leaving.
Okay.
That kept him in eye shot and everything. But yeah, I think next time Casey's on, we'll have to ask him about that, because that's a good reminder.
Okay.
So Jesse, do you got anything you'd like to ask him before we?
Well, you asked earlier, what would you say to someone, and as I said in my interview, I had Josh Harris, on, and he didn't believe it. He was like, well, some people can't really handle it in the summertime in Alaska. So I kind of took the wind out of my sails, that made me think it was tough. But when Nick came on, because I had a fishing show, which I got Nick on, and we got to know each other a little bit too, but Nick actually believed that I could do it. He's like, yeah, you can do it. So, and Cole's mad at you for this, by the way.
Why?
He's like, so he puts me on a screamer Highliner boat. My first experience with this guy puts more crab on the boat than a lot of crab. We're talking Dungeness. And
in California.
But I warned you. He wasn't screaming. I did.
He warned
me.
Me, but it was great for me because it set the pace for commercial fishing for everything. Like one season on Patty's boat and every other boat, you're like, really? This is it? And so I was fortunate that Nick believed that I could do it, but then put me on a real test of a boat. I mean, this guy is infamous for going through crew. And it's not because he's a bad captain. It's because they couldn't deal with it. And like Nick was saying, mentally, I was, 41 years old. And
Greenhorn.
Yeah, Greenhorn. Yeah. And I survived 2 whole crews on the boats. And they were in their young 20s. And they were strong. They were strong and fast and full of piss and vinegar. But it was the mental challenge that they didn't overcome and the yelling. And I tried telling these kids, it's like, look, don't listen to the tone of the voice. Listen to the words. The words are what matter here. And there'll be a lot less yelling if you listen to the words. Yeah. And don't make them yell again. And they instead were kind of defiant. Like, who's this guy think he is? And they weren't on the boat very long. And but yeah, Nick gave me the confidence coming from sports fishing, kayak fishing, and to get into the commercial industry. And I didn't go in toes first, man. He threw me in neck deep, and it worked out well. And here I am today, still at it. So
There's my testimonial.
There it is. Yeah. There it is right there. Man. There it is. So Nick, one more time, the title of your program.
Become your captain, catch your future. You can find it at nicktokman.com. But
that's Nick NICK
TOKMAN.com. Yeah. Wait, what was it? I wanted to say something. What the heck? You just yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter about physical size. You know, to do the job, it's just all about heart. If you want it, I think you'll succeed at it. That's just the end factor.
Well, you guys both mentioned Muncie. Muncie from out here. Muncie is not a big man.
No.
But he's aggressive.
Yeah.
He's hardworking. He moves quick.
You just have to want it. It's just like an.
Jesse's not a big guy.
No.
And yesterday we were in 6-foot seas, in a 42-foot boat.
Yeah.
And he didn't hold on to anything. He's standing on the deck. He's got all of his legs. Water crashing over the top of the house. It's great.
Yeah.
I enjoy the energy of the ocean. You know, it's nice to be in it, and you know, not a lot of people get to. So
I was holding on to the crane.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's just like in anything. It doesn't matter if fishing. It's just I think if you succeed, if you want to succeed at it, you got to have the heart to want it. And that's it.
So if these guys go to your website, they're going to find where to find you, how to get in touch with you.
Yeah.
What some of the things you're about.
Yeah.
All right, great. So you guys heard that there. This has been another installment of Galley Stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Galley Stories as well. And we will see you next time. Thanks, Nick.
Right.
And Jesse.
Let's get some ice cream.